Now, One Piece chapter 1058. Now, it seems like we're finally out of Wano and we're heading into the next arc. Now, we don't know what arc this is going to be. A lot of people speculate that it's going to be Albath, Vera. There's a lot of speculation going on around as to what the next arc is going to be. But what's really interesting right now is that we're getting those transition chapters, right? Usually we always get these chapters right after an act ends, and it seems like this is also the case for the final act of Wano. So we're finally transitioning into something crazy because this is essentially the start of the final saga. So I expect this transition to be pretty crazy, as it more than likely will set up something for the future. But this was a really good chapter. It gave us some indications and actually the full story as to how Buggy became a Yonko, because that was something that we had inclinations as to how he became a Yonko, not legitimately. And so here we get the full details as to how that came to be. And it's actually more surprising than I originally thought it was, right? But we'll talk more about that later in this video. But before we keep going, guys, I'd appreciate it if you drop a like on this video, hit the bell if you want to get notified for future content, and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. But let's start from the beginning. Now, first things first, we finally get the bounties of the Straw Hats, because for the most part, when we got the bounty reveals in Wano, they only mentioned Luffy, Kid, and Law. But here we get the entirety of the Straw Hats, and I think this is something that a lot of people were waiting for. And the bounties are actually within a lot of our expectations. But something interesting does happen with the bounty boost that we do see in this arc. And a certain Straw Hat that we do see here seems to be getting more of an highlight, which is something, again, a lot of us expected to happen a lot sooner. But I'll talk more on that as we move forward. Now, let's get into the bounties. Now, we're going to start from lowest to highest. Now, the lowest obviously is Chopper. And here we get to see his new bounty being 1,000 berries. And again, with Chopper, we knew that there's always a recurring gag with Oda when it comes to Chopper's bounty. We don't necessarily know why, because I guess it's partly due to the fact that he's considered the pet of the Straw Hat, even though they consider him a commander in this chapter as well. So again, it's mostly seems to be derived from the gag Oda built up throughout the entire course of the story, and it doesn't seem like it's going to change anytime soon. So Chopper got a 900 berry increase, again, which is nothing substantial, so makes a lot of sense when you take everything into account as to what Oda started with Chopper, right? So the gag thing is going to stay, and I expect future bounties to have the same thing, right? Next, we have Nami, and she has a 366 million berry bounty. Now, it seems like the lower Straw Hats, apart from Chopper, it seems like they got a 300 mil bounty increase, because we know that Nami's bounty before this was actually 66 million, so they added a 300 mil bounty increase. So more than likely, this is mostly from them defeating the Flying Six, right? So it makes sense that they would all get the same bounty increase. Same with Brook here. Brook has a 383 million bounty, and again, if you guys remember, the same thing, he had an 83 million bounty before this. So again, just like Nami, it's a 300 mil increase. Same for Frankie, he has a 394 million berry bounty. And what's also funny about him is that they have the Sunny as his picture on his bounty, which is very strange because I'm not sure where that came from. But I think this could possibly leeway to other plot lines involving Frankie in some way, shape, or form, because I would see no reason to have Frankie's bounty have the Sunny on it, right? Unless the Sunny's like Pluton or something and someone like was able to recognize it. But that's all speculation. But I think Oda definitely has something in store for Frankie, because having the Sunny as his picture makes no sense. So obviously Oda is planting seeds here, or it could just be a gag thing, not sure. We then move on to Usopp, and he has a 500 mil berry bounty, and again, it makes sense. He follows the same scheme as the previous Straw Hat. They get a 300 mil increase because Usopp's bounty before this was 200 mil, so again, makes a lot of sense. Usopp didn't really do much in this arc, but I expect him to do much more later on in the story, especially towards Elbaf. But I'm likely to believe that this increase more than likely is related to Luffy becoming a full-fledged Yonko, right? More so than anything, because we know that for the most part, some of the Straw Hats didn't really do anything, like Usopp and Brook. They weren't really main players in this arc, but they also got an increase. So I think just being affiliated with Luffy here increases your bounty by a lot, right? And we know this because during Dressrosa, the Straw Hats that weren't involved in that arc also got a bounty increase. So it seems like the same thing is happening here as well, even though they did play a role in this battle. Now, this is where we enter the big boys, and Robin now has the 4th highest bounty on the crew, and for the most part, it's equal to Luffy's 3 commanders right now, 3 top commanders, and she has a 930 mil berry bounty. And this is huge because it's obvious that Oda is putting a highlight on Robin. In the last few arcs, it seems like Robin is becoming more and more important as we head towards the end of the story, right? And it makes a lot of sense because we know that Kaido and Big Mom, apart from defeating the Alliance, they also wanted Robin alive. And we also know that the CP0's main mission in Wano was to get Robin. So again, a huge highlight on Robin, and it makes a lot of sense that her bounty got this much of an increase. So people on the outside world are going to view this increase as being weird, and we might start seeing people come after Robin. Now next we have the 3 top commanders, and in terms of their bounty, it's very, very relative, and I think this is Oda just saying that these 3 characters are very relative in terms of strength and in terms of portrayal in the crew. But something interesting does happen here in which Jinbei's bounty is higher than Sanji. So Sanji's bounty here is 1,032,000,000 berries, making him the 4th highest bounty on the crew. And usually this isn't the case because Sanji's usually in 3rd place. But because of Jinbei joining the crew now, the order is now changed. And of course, this got Sanji very, very heated. Not more so that Jinbei was above him, but that Zoro was. But Jinbei also being above him was definitely the icing on the cake, right? So it's obvious that Oda is still pushing this Zoro-Sanji bounty gag. And I think it's something that's going to stay at the till the end of the series, just like we have the thing with Chopper as well. But here we have Jinbei at 1,100,000,000 berries, and then we have Zoro at 1,100,000,000 and 1,100 berries. So the difference between Zoro and Jinbei is essentially just 1,000 berries. It almost seems like Jinbei has taken Sanji's position, right? But we obviously know that's not the case. But it's really, really cool seeing the top 3 commanders of Luffy's crew being at 1,000,000,000 berries. Like, this is no ordinary commanders, right? If you have all of them sitting pretty much on the same scale in terms of bounty. And I think this is saying something of the quality of Luffy's commanders. But this was a very massive increase for both the 3 top commanders and also Robin. It's crazy that Luffy has 3 people under him that have 1,000,000,000 berries. And this essentially solidifies Luffy as a certified Yonko. Now, moving on to Buggy, Crocodile, and Mihawk. And of course, in terms of Buggy's case, we knew that there was some sort of misunderstanding, and that seems to be the case here. But before we get into that, let's go over the bounties of the 3 individuals here, Crocodile, Mihawk, and Buggy. Now, Crocodile's bounty is 1,965,000,000 berries, and that is a very, very massive increase. And more likely, this is due to the organization that he has. And we do also know that Crocodile's bounty was also unfrozen 2 years ago, so we don't necessarily know what it was before this jump. But this is a massive increase. We then move on to Buggy's bounty, and Buggy has a 3.1 billion berry bounty. And again, his stems from false hype and the misunderstanding that Mihawk and Crocodile work under him. And this is how, for the most part, he false hyped himself into the ranks of the Yonko. So again, we're seeing that Buggy is not that guy, obviously. We knew this, but you know, it's cool that we get answers here. What I do also find interesting is that the organization Cross Guild was meant to be created by only Mihawk and Crocodile, but because Buggy interjected himself, it would seem that even Buggy's false hype has some merit to it, because now they have even more fame because of what Buggy did, or I guess his subordinates did, because they're essentially the reason that this started. And then finally we come to Mihawk's bounty, which is 3.59 bill, which is essentially 3.6 bill. And to me, this essentially validates the idea of Mihawk being a Yonko level character. And I know that's a discussion a lot of people have in this community, Shanks versus Mihawk, but here it outright states that Mihawk is a swordsman that surpasses Shanks in skill. Now, a lot of people are taking that statement as just skill, but I think it's the idea of being a swordsman in general. Overall, Mihawk is stronger in the art of the sword. Now, I'm not necessarily going to go into the whole conversation of Mihawk versus Shanks. I did have a 3-hour conversation on that on my other channel. If you guys want to see that, you can go check that out, but that's not the point here. Shanks versus Mihawk, I think, is an extreme diff fight. It could go either way, but I think this chapter even proves that even more, because I think Mihawk, for the most part, is a Yonko level fighter. Some people do not give him the credit that honestly he deserves. So this chapter is good for Mihawk fans. But I will say that the Cross Guild is probably one of the best concepts Oda has introduced as of recently, because it makes the world very, very interesting, because this is something that the Marines have to watch out for. And honestly, Crocodile and Mihawk teaming up is a cool choice by Oda. Like, these are 2 badass characters teaming up in the same faction, right? So I like where this is going to Cross Guild. Obviously, Buggy's just there for clout reasons, right? Gags, whatnot. But it is a very interesting choice as well. So Cross Guild, I am going to do a deep dive into what I think about the whole thing, because Again, I do think that this is one of Oda's best concepts as of recently, and I can see where Oda could take this. Like, this could be really, really good for the story. Now, we finally arrive at the end of the chapter with the Revolutionaries, and again, this is a topic that we've been wanting answers as to what really happened at the Reverie, because for the most part, what we got in the news is always has biases and lies of the world government, so we can't really trust the news when it comes to stuff like this. So we have to get it from word of mouth from someone like Sabo, and it seems like we're heading towards that direction. Now, we get to see Dragon and most of the Revolutionaries here, but we also do get to see Kuma. Now, this scene is very weird because Kuma was with Sabo and the other commanders, so why exactly is Kuma here by himself? So this is struck me as being very weird, and it would seem that more than just them escaping happened. Now, we know that Sabo didn't kill Cobra. That was something obviously implemented by the world government, and we also know that something happened to Vivi, so I think this call more than likely is related to Vivi and where Sabo and those guys are at. So it seems like we're going to get the truth here and some more, because when it comes to things like this, Oda is never clear cut, right? There's always a sense of vagueness and subverting expectations. So the things that we do expect more than likely will happen, but Oda more than likely will add a twist on top of everything. So there's going to be a turn in this conversation that he's going to have with Dragon here, and it could lead to all sorts of things. Now, we do also get to see the Marines wiretapping the conversation, but I will say I am happy that we're finally diving into the revolutionary stuff. Now, it's not going to be for long because these transition chapters are going to be maybe 2-3 more chapters left of this, depending on what happens. I think we're eventually going to see Blackbeard and what came out of that situation on whatever he was searching for. So it seems like Oda is tackling all the mysteries that he built up during the previous transition chapters. And I do think we are going to get all the answers that we're looking for. So we're going to find out information about whatever happened at the Reverie, the whole scope of the story, and then we're also going to find out what Blackbeard was searching for. I think those transition chapters we got beforehand were building up towards these ones where it's finally revealed as to what is actually going on. So I'm definitely excited to see more. But that is pretty much it for this video, guys. I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video. Comment down below what you guys think. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Hit the bell if you're gonna get notified for more content on this channel. You can follow me on Twitter at Ferrospace, but it is fair, guys, and I will see you folks later. Peace.